What's up, guys? Nick Skrip. Stick to the Skrip podcast. We have episode 9 now. So I've had some great guests on. If you have not checked out those other episodes, please be sure to do so. We've told some great stories. We've had some laughs, talked about life. Each episode's been very different. It's been good. It's been great. It's something I've enjoyed. Um, what I got going on today is a little bit of a solo podcast here. Well, I had some, thoughts about who I wanted to have on the show this week, and I have thoughts on who's going to be on the show at a later time, but it didn't really work out the way I wanted it to this week. And in all honesty, I just have like a shit ton of stuff I'm sorting out right now at this point in my life. So it's been a busy week, but I said to myself, if it's going to be just Nick on this one, fuck it, let's do it. So this podcast today specifically is going to be called Life Lessons Learned. And it's going to be some pointers that I feel like I've picked up over time that are important to know and important to share. It's maybe, a list of things that, 10 years ago, maybe I wanted to, or I didn't, think about as much, or maybe I could have, had somebody tell me. So maybe if there's something on this list that stands out to you listening, and it's beneficial to you, then it's worth it to me at the end of the day, talking about some of these topics. So life lessons learned. Maybe if I am, 31 now and I can go back and, say these things to 21-year-old Nick, I would do so. But just different things picked up through time. So I will send a side note. I don't know how I look on camera. I'm like small on this YouTube video, but I had like dental work done today. So some of my face is still numb. So if it looks like, I'm not speaking normally, that's why. But let's kick things off. I got 25 things. If this podcast is 25 minutes, 50 minutes, 10 minutes, it is what it is. So we'll go through each one and just talk briefly on it. No, but number one here, smaller circles are best as you get older. And that's something I've learned over time, because I think a lot of people through high school, a lot of people when they go to college, maybe they're, 21, young adults, we like to have tons of friends, and that's completely normal, nothing wrong with that. We like to be around a bunch of different people, and I think that, is perfectly fine in your younger years, and it helps you kind of sort out later who are your better friends, and you'll meet tons and tons of people through time. But as you get older, life gets more complicated, right? You might get married one day. Maybe you have kids. Maybe you have a more demanding job. So that, want for having all these friendships maybe isn't, necessarily a need at the end of the day, because you have more important things in your life. So, you kind of have to figure out through time who are your true friends, and keep that circle at times maybe a bit smaller, because your true friends maybe are the ones that you want to prioritize your time and energy with as you do get older and life becomes more complicated. Who are the people that are looking out for your best interests? Who are the people that are there for you for the good and the bad? Who are the people that give you something in life, present something beneficial towards you in life, and hopefully you do the same back to them? So as you get older, I think your circle gets smaller and smaller. And I relate to that. If I go to a bar on a Saturday night locally, I'm sure I run into a bunch of people, acquaintances. I've had tons of friends at points in my life. I used to host parties and have people over all the time. But my circle, I would say, is a lot smaller than it used to be. And I wouldn't change that for anything right now, just because, again, life gets more complicated, and you get a good sense of who that circle should be. Number two, time management goes a long way. Too often people think that they don't have time to do certain things in life, when in reality, it's just a matter of you managing your time more effectively. I get, credited sometimes in the fantasy football space. People will say like, oh, Nick is just always putting out content. He's got a kid. He coaches too. He's got a full-time job. This guy just works his ass off. And that's true for a fact, but I manage my time very well. So for me, like, going to the gym is very important to me. What time do I go to the gym normally? 5 a.m. And people will be like, you're psycho for doing that. Oh, it's so early. Well, if I want to do it, knowing I have a child, knowing I have a full-time job and I have some other side gigs, if I want to do it, sometimes 5 a.m. is the route I have to go. Sometimes it ends up being 8 p.m. And it's just a matter of, you know, not having excuses in life about things that you can and can't do and just figuring out, hey, when I have these windows of time, what do I do with those windows of time? And for me, when I have windows of time, it's going to the gym, it's making fantasy football content, it's doing these podcasts. I can sit and play PlayStation or watch like TV shows, and I'm not knocking anybody who does that stuff because you need to relax and have your outlets in life. But for me, I find my windows of time and I use them effectively. And I think that you don't have to be extreme like that. You don't have to always be doing shit all the time. And I feel like I do that, and it kind of, you know, it adds up at some extent. But I also think it's a major excuse for people not to get things done at the end of the day because they don't use their time effectively. So that's a big thing. Number 3, improvising is one of the best skills. I truly believe that because I feel like a lot of us in life have, plans, and, we think things, I'm trying to make it as general as possible. We think things are going one direction, and out of nowhere, they're going completely in a different direction. It could be related to your job, at your everyday job. You're going through your normal motions, and then boom, something big hits you out of nowhere, and you have to improvise. And a lot of people don't like to improvise and have to figure things out when things hit them. And I think it's a good skill to have is to have that fast thought process of, hey, when the unexpected happens, how do I deal with it? Obviously you're not going to think about that nonstop with everything you do in life, but you'll see when people have to improvise, some people do it very, very well. Quick thinking, calmly, figure it out, and then attack it. Other people kind of fold when it comes to that. So I truly think that improvising is a skill that is slept on. Number 4. So these are all over the place in no specific order. I was just like jotting them down in the office. So we're going all over the place here. But number 4, don't take for granted time spent with family. And, people can say like, oh, some of these things are kind of corny on this list. But I think if you can relate to this and things I'm saying, then maybe it's not so corny. Maybe it's something that you should think about more often. So this past year in 2022, lost my grandma, so my dad's mom, and then her longtime partner, which you could pretty much call a grandpa to me, Mr. B. They went, I think within like a month of each other. And I remember maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, it was like my ex's birthday, and I was out in the city, right? Out in the city. And I knew I had to be at my grandma's house for Christmas that next morning. And I was out all night with like some of my friends. We were out, out partying and stuff. And I was not feeling good. I was not feeling good at all because I remember puking, getting out of the car and puking. But I made it a point to go and see her for that Christmas at her house, not knowing that it would, be the last Christmas that I would ever have with my grandma. But I also remember growing up, thinking sometimes, oh, we got to drive all the way to, my aunt's house or my uncle's house or my grandma's house, like for Christmas. That's such a pain in the ass. You would have these thoughts. And then later, as you get older in life, you think to yourself, hey, like, I'd give I'd give anything to have another Christmas or, Easter with my grandparent, or maybe it's a parent of yours. And I think sometimes we take for granted. We don't like actually, I'm not saying you have to like fake something every time you're at like a family gathering and stuff, but I also think that, some people make it a chore sometimes, when in reality, at some point, a lot of the people in your life you're not going to have um in the future for a lot of years. My nana and I were extremely close. My second mother, I would do anything. I would do anything to have another Christmas or birthday or Easter with her. And I know in the past, sometimes like shit got annoying, maybe time to time at her house. Maybe there was like some sort of fighting, or somebody was in a bad mood, or, you're worn down from the day. You don't really want to be there. But I think we take for granted sometimes time spent with family because you don't know at the end of the day if it's your last year with somebody in your family, if you're going to have, 20 more years, whatever the case is. So don't take it for granted, because once somebody's gone, they're gone for good. I'm not trying to get all emotional and shit here. Let's see. Your mental health is extremely vital. I think that we often overlook that. I think that men specifically, and it's extremely important for men and women, but I think there's like a stigma that men should always be tough and kind of hide this to a degree. But I also think that it's something that should be taken less lightly, especially as you get older and through time. Your mental health, like how you're doing. Everybody's going through stuff every day. People are going through different things at all times. Uh, but addressing your mental health and how you're doing is something not talked about a lot. And I don't think a lot of people are raised that way, to like have those conversations and talk about things. I know me specifically, I've been very, very bad about this for a long time and still am. But it is very important. It's something to uh, keep in mind at the end of the day. It's not all just physical health and financial health. There's also that, the mental health aspect of it. Number 6, discipline over motivation. And I said consistency is key. I love this. I saw it on TikTok from this girl influencer. She said that motivation is fake and it's all discipline. Like, fuck motivation. And I love that. I love that so much, because if you rely on motivation to work out, to do good at sports, to do good at your job, to get a better paying job one day, whatever, you go down the list, there's going to be a lot of days in your life where you have zero motivation or small motivation. It's actually like, if you look through the span of a year, I would bet that the average person, highly motivated or not motivated, is going to be more towards that not motivated. But if you're disciplined, with what you do, motivation is just like icing on the cake. If you're disciplined with what you do, motivation is just the cherry on top. Because discipline comes from consistency. Consistency is key. For example, I'll use the gym as an example. For example, waking up at 4:30. Okay, am I motivated to wake up at 4:30 all the days that I'm able to do that? Probably not. When I wake up and I'm driving in my car going to the gym, I show up to the gym. Am I like motivated the whole time? Am I motivated every day to work out? Like, probably not. Am I disciplined though? Is it in like something that I've pounded into my routine? Am I consistent about it? Yes. So I'm not relying on the motivation. I'm relying on the discipline that's been built. And again, you can use that for a lot of different things. I tell this to my high school soccer kids all the time, like, discipline over motivation. Okay. You might not always, be extremely motivated to practice every day, or to be in shape for the season, or to compete in a certain game. But if you're disciplined and you're consistent with what you do, that'll take you where you need to be at the end of the day, not motivation. Number 7, accountability builds credibility. So, I think about this often with like me creating fantasy football content, and you can take some of these points and kind of spin them to how, you feel necessary in your life. But I think when you are accountable as a person, you build credibility. If you always hide your mistakes and flaws, let's say for fantasy football, let's say I only boost myself for my good hits when I say something that really is correct and works out, but I hide all the bad takes. I might lose some credibility at the end of the day. But if I do both, if I say, "Hey, this was a bad call. This is what I was thinking. Here's where I went right this week," I think you build more credibility. And you can use that same thought process in a lot of things. Maybe your relationships. Maybe you're accountable for when you were wrong about something in your relationship. I think that would go a long way, right? Because if you always are pointing the finger to the other person, for example, and never taking, fault to something, then it becomes you're less credible. You're always just, pointing to the other person. When on the flip side, let's say you are accountable when you need to be, but then you're firm when it's not on you. I think your partner might be like, hey, you know what? Maybe I need to look at it different because I know that this person will be accountable for when they are wrong about something. Right now, they don't feel like they are. Maybe I need to look at this situation or this argument or whatever. I mean, you can use this for a lot of different things, but if you're accountable, you own when you're wrong, but you can, also own when you're right. You can do both. I think you build some credibility. Number 8. Can't scroll. Yes, I can. Everyone is fighting their own battles. Again, it's oversaid all the time, but is it really factored in all the time by other people? I don't know. You never know what somebody's going through at the end of the day. So, for example, I was going through the works at the beginning of my breakup with my divorce. I was going through a pretty rough time, in all honesty. There was specific reasons on why. Maybe it wasn't just like breakup focused. There was a lot of reasons why I was going through it, but I was going through the works. I was probably drinking too much. I was probably in my feels. I probably didn't want to talk to anybody. And, I was in a very poor state. And I was stuck there for a little bit. And I was going through a lot. But a lot of people didn't know about it. And that kind of goes all the way up to smaller circles are best. Because my small circle did and mostly were there. But there's a lot of people that didn't know shit about what was going on because they didn't feel the need to check in on me, or maybe they did know about it, but they really didn't check on me. So that's why they're not in that, circle. But I was going through the works. But I had a conversation with a guy on Twitter, another fantasy football Twitter account, whatever. I'm not centered at all, am I? And he was telling me he was going through the same thing. But here's the difference. He said his divorce was extremely ugly, nonstop fighting through courts. His significant other was trying to take his kids away from him. Every day was a battle. So it gives you perspective, right? The perspective being that, hey, I'm going through a lot, but shit, somebody's got it fucking worse than I do. And you can kind of, use that as a way of thinking sometimes of, hey, I'm going through a lot, but there's other people going through worse. That's part of it. But also, when you run into somebody you're not in a good mood, you're running into somebody who you can just tell is having a bad day. You run into somebody that maybe you judge too quickly. You run into somebody that comes off a certain way, and then you look at them a certain way. You don't know what they're going through. Like I've met people the last year or so that have gone through some serious shit, and not everybody knows about it. Not everybody knows what they're going through. I've met people that have had huge losses of people in their life, and not a lot of people know about it. I've met people that were going through terrible financial situations. Not a lot of people knew about it. You don't know what people are going through at the end of the day. Everybody's got their own battles, and it's something to kind of keep in mind when we're judgmental of some people, or if we take things lightly on somebody being sad or in a bad mood. Number 9, relationships are 100-100. Another thing I saw on TikTok, and I like this too because the quote was like, relationships are not 50-50. They're 100-100. That you got to be 100 and the other person's got to be 100 about the relationship. And I completely agree with that. Completely agree with that. It could be with your husband or wife. It could be with your fiance. It could be with your, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever the case is. 100-100. You can't, there's going to be days where, it's going to lean one way. Maybe one day your significant other's given 70% and you're given 30%, or vice versa. There's going to be days like that. But I also think that as a whole, this is more of a as a whole thing, should be 100-100. You're all about the relationship, And so is your significant other. And there's going to be days where it's not going to be good. There's going to be days where it's bad. There might be months where it's bad or weeks where it's bad. But at the end of the day, you got to be on the same page with being 100% about it. Are you 100% going to want to work it out? Are you 100% going to, fight for it when it needs to be fought for? Like me personally, I know through many relationships. So, people might be listening thinking, oh, he's talking about his last one. No, I'm talking about all my relationships. There's been ones where I know for a fact I wasn't all in on, but I know as a person through time now, I feel like I'm either 100% into something, relationships or most things in life, or I'm not. And I think that mentality is kind of slept on when it comes to relationships all the time. That's why you see so many like breakups. You see so many divorces. You see so many people that call it quits after a short period, a long period of time. I think you're either all in if you want to take something serious, especially a long-term relationship, or you're not. And if, a relationship's not something that you're willing to fight for, if it's not something that, you prioritize at the end of the day, then you're probably not doing your significant other justice by it. So I think, when it comes to two people, 100, 100, not 50, 50, 100, 100. I'm all about it. You're all about it. Let's make it work. Next, out of sight, out of mind. So this is a big social media thing. I've talked about this a bunch of times, but if you don't want to see certain things or if things make you uncomfortable in life, don't look at them and make sure that you find ways to not look at them. For example, and again, not everything is about me personally. These are things, these are conversations I've had, like this specific one I've had with other people about their stuff. But let's say, for example, you go through a breakup, right? And your significant other is posting a bunch of stuff. Maybe I'll put it from a girl's perspective. It's a guy. He's posted himself at the bar. He's posted himself with other chicks, with his buddies. They're all taking shots. I mean, like they're doing a bunch of stuff you don't want to see. Eliminate it from your visibility. So if you gotta block or delete, that's extreme sometimes, but maybe you just like mute certain things. Or you just don't scroll on social media, or you just don't flip through stories on Instagram or Snapchat. Because if it's out of your sight and you're not seeing things that bother you, then you're not going to be thinking about it, as much as you would be if you're seeing literally everything. And that doesn't have to just go with relationships. If there's people that bother you with what they do with their life, then don't look at it. I'm not saying go and delete everybody. You don't have to do that. But if there are things that you don't want to see, then make it a point to not see them. Out of sight, out of mind. Like there's people I hear all the time bitch about like what people are posting on social media. Well, don't fucking look at it then. Mute it. You can easily do that on like every single social media app. Mute it and move on with your life. Out of sight, out of mind. If you're actively seeing things you don't want to see, it's going to be on your mind. All right. So don't see those things. Number 11, timing is a variance. So I feel like I got to like start rolling through these faster because we're taking a lot of time here. Timing is a variance. So I mean that because I think we try to generalize all the time the right timing for certain things in life. By this time, most people should be in a serious relationship. By this time, most people should be married. By this time in life, most people should have a kid. By this time, so let's get away from that. By this time, you should have your full-time career by this time in life. By this time in life, you should have your own house. By this time in life, you should, just go down the list, be making X amount of money. It's a lot of different things. I feel like people get caught up so often in like, I'm ahead of the game. I'm way behind. All right. And then we get comparative. Well, like these people are here in life and I'm here. Timing is a variance. Everybody's timing in life is completely different. I forget who the fucking celebrity is. Maybe it was like Oprah or something, like wasn't making shit for most of her life. And then at an older part of her life, she was making bank. and her timing was just different, but now she's fucking Oprah, I think there's like a bunch of examples like that. The KFC guy, that was another one. He like didn't get rich until he was like an old man. And I'm not saying, those are extreme things, but everybody's timing is your own timing. You figure things out. I'm not saying be lazy and sit back in life and be laid back, but I am saying that you don't have to compare your timing to anybody else's when it comes to any category that you can think of. Your timing is your timing at the end of the day for your life. 12, gym benefits. I won't talk long about it, but if you have the time, go to the gym. Go to the gym. Go to the gym at the same time as much as possible. There's many benefits. Number one, for me personally, big mental benefit. When you're at the gym, you're focusing in on one person and one thing, you and your health. That's it. That's it. Maybe you're thinking about other things, but if you're actively working out, the only person you are focusing on in that moment is yourself. I mean, you could be thinking about stuff maybe if you're walking on a treadmill or something like that, but if you're like lifting a weight or something, you're not thinking about, the fight you had with your best friend. Like you're fucking thinking about, don't kill myself with this weight. There's a big mental health portion of it. There's also, if you're lacking some confidence in yourself, great place to be, the gym. Because as you see yourself get better, you start to look at yourself, I think, in a more positive light. I think you get more confidence as somebody who feels comfortable in their body, somebody who sees a difference in themselves. I think that if you're lacking confidence, great place to be. If you don't have a lot of friends, great place to be. I have met so many people at the gym just by being there at the same time all the time. And I don't even go up to half these people. Sometimes I do, but it's taken one time. The same people I see every day. And then that one guy that I see every single day, randomly comes up to me. Hey, this actually happened like last week. This guy, hey, I see you squatting. Like, what do you usually do for that? You were, squatting kind of heavy. What's your routine? And I see this guy every single day. So now every time I see him, because of that one conversation, what's up, man? What's up, man? Same with another guy. I went up to this guy months ago and I was like, hey, dude, you're here fucking every day. Every time I'm here, you're here. And he's like, we just out here grinding. Fist bump, go about my day. Now every day I see this guy, fist bump. What's up, man? How's it going? Sometimes we talk, sometimes we don't. Somebody on the staircase. This was like 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. She was like, she's there every single time. We made a joke. She made a joke because she told me it was not working, and then it was working, or I messed with her, whatever. And now, we talk from time to time too. Like I have a lot of different people that I've met at the gym because I'm just there all the time. And if I seen them somewhere, I'd probably talk to them, too. And that's like 3 examples of people, but I feel like I go there all the time around the same time. So I feel like I like know like 15 people that I actually like really don't. But easy way to be social, easy way to make friends. And then obviously your health. It's easy to let yourself go. It's easy to go backwards in life with your health, but I've heard this many times too. Um, Healthy people want like many things in life, right? But people that have poor health only want one thing, and that's to be healthy. And you can be in control of a lot of your health by going to the gym. Number 13, let your thoughts be known versus bottling them. This is something I've been horrible at for most of my life. I have let things, be on my mind and stay on my mind that should be spit out, and I would just let them snowball effect. It starts small, and then it's another thing, and it just keeps rolling and rolling until it's big, and then I explode them all out at some point. I try to be better about that. I'm still pretty poor at it, but have conversations in life. If it's with your significant other, if it's with your best friend, if it's with your coworker, whatever, let your thoughts be known. Sometimes it's even fine to just write out your thoughts. What's bothering you? What you're thinking? Because the more you bottle things up, the more likely you're going to explode at some point. 14, people change, and could be relationships again, could be your friendships, could be people you grew up with, whatever. It's part of life. You sometimes think that you know exactly how a person is. You think that you know exactly, what a person's morals are, what their mindset is, what's important to them in life. And then sometimes you find out that you were wrong about that, or that you were right and then it changed. And it's part of life at the end of the day. People change. And sometimes it means you lose people that are in your life because of that. And again, it's just part of life. Um, it's something you kind of have to embrace. And sometimes it's more difficult than other times when it comes to the subject. But again, it's just part of life. And we talked about improvising before. We talked about accountability. That could be like part of that too. We talked about your circles. Talked about relationships. People change. Part of life. Not in your control. It fucking blows sometimes, but you are only in control of so much. Number 15, embrace the process. So, whatever your goal is in life, there's a process for it. If you want to lose fucking 20 pounds, there's a process to losing 20 pounds. Shit doesn't happen overnight unless you have one of those surgeries. Then power to you for that. But there's a process for anything worthwhile at the end of the day. So, let's say it's getting a promotion. Let's say it's losing weight. Let's say it's starting a side job, whatever the case is. I mean, you go down the list. You have to embrace everything that it's going to take. Maybe it's like being a better soccer player. I mean, I'm a coach here. You have to embrace everything that comes with getting to the result. And not a lot of people want to do that all the time. They love results. There's people that love results, but they don't like the process, so they get out of that process. We talked about discipline and consistency. This goes hand in hand with this. Holding on to that discipline and the consistency in order to get to where you want to be. So you have to embrace the process, and the process might suck. It might fucking be terrible. You might get frustrated every day of your life during this process, but you have to embrace it at the end of the day. And you have to be all about the process and what it's going to take for you to get from A to B. And not enough people want to embrace the process, but you have to, and you have to, attack the process. Care less about people who do not impact you. I think that goes, with a lot of, some of the things that I talked about earlier about not, seeing stuff you don't want to see. I think it goes to a later point, so I might be short on this one. But if you are worrying about people that have no impact on your life so often, I think you're taking away from worrying about yourself and things you can do better in your own life with that. Make a hobby a side gig. This is just a suggestion that I would have for a lot of people. But if you have a hobby that's unique to you, then making it a side gig, I think, is one of the smartest things you can do in life. So me with fantasy football, I was bored one day. COVID was the time. It was during COVID time. COVID was the time. It was during COVID times. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to write some articles. I'm going to create this P2W fantasy brand. Flash forward like 2 years later, I have all of these people wearing P2W fantasy merchandise. I have a podcast. I have like 16,000 followers on Twitter for fantasy football. I have made, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars from it. Maybe it's thousands. I don't know. Maybe it's thousands. It's probably thousands. I don't know. Whatever. But I turned a hobby into a side gig. Coaching for me. I love soccer. At the end of the day, what did soccer turn into? A hobby. I played college soccer. That was all great. How do I turn it into a side gig? I coach. I keep that hobby, that sport, and I turn it into a side gig. I run a high school program over at Plainfield South. I love it. It's something I love that I turn into a side gig. You can think about things in your life that maybe you do, as a hobby or you enjoy. How can you make money from it though? I feel like people don't do that all the time. They like certain things and they don't think creatively to how you can take something that you like or love and make money off of it. Like, why not make money off of something at the end of the day that you are already invested in and you spend time doing? I love fantasy football. I play it. I research things. Why not take it a step further? Why not like try to make money off of it? I love soccer. I'm done playing. How do I, make some money off it? Obviously, I love coaching. It's not all about money. It's actually not about the money at all. I'm not making like crazy money over there or anything like that. But again, how can you take something you love and monetize from it? Shoot your shots. Failure is inevitable. Shoot your shots. You can take this in a lot of ways. The pretty girl that you see at the gym, the pretty girl that you see at the bar. What's the worst that can happen with you introducing yourself? She tells you to fuck off, or she ignores you, or her and her friends laugh. Who cares at the end of the day? Because, a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later, whatever your timeline is, for um, shaking that off, it won't mean anything. It won't mean anything. Uh, that could be with like trying to talk to people. That could be with job opportunities. Reaching out to companies and shooting your shot. Here's my resume. I'm looking for a role. I really respect what you guys got going on. Blah blah blah. I talk to people all the time in the fantasy football or content creating world. That do podcasts. Shoot your shot for a podcast. If you do podcasts and there's a bigger guest that you can have on the show, shoot your shot. I used to do that all the time. I used to have like 500 followers on Twitter, and I used to shoot my shot all the time to much bigger fantasy people to try to come on my show. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. And, at the end of the day, another cliche, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. It's true, though, because at some point you look back at some things in life and say, hey, I had the balls to just like shoot the shot for this specific thing and it worked out. Failure is always going to happen. You're going to fail at so many things in life. It's part of life. It's inevitable. So don't fear failure. Don't fear failure. All right. It's going to happen, for different aspects. You can work towards not failing, of course, but when it comes to shooting your shot, again, it could be to a girl or a guy. It could be to a job thing. It could be to an opportunity. It could be for whatever. Shoot your shot because too many people will not. And then later in life, you'll regret it. Ah, man, I really should have just gave it a try. Gave it a try. This is my swollen side. I can see it kind of. Yeah, it's still down a little bit. Um, Confidence is king. I really, really mean that. And I wish I could have told myself that like 10 years ago. I'm not saying I was ever not confident, but I also think that confidence goes so far in life. You can build confidence through a lot of these things we talked about, having goals and embracing a process, going to the gym, um, shooting your shots. Effectively using your time and building yourself. I mean, there's so many different things, but confidence in what you do is key. Confidence is key. You can relate it to your job a lot. If you're confident in your job, in the way you present yourself at your job, I think that takes you, a further way than if you seem timid. If you're confident going into a job interview, if you're confident with approaching people, having, being social, confidence goes so far in life, but I feel like it's tough. It's easier said than done when it comes to that. But if you prepare yourself enough, you build yourself up and how you view yourself, I think that the confidence can come. You will bounce back. That's huge. That's huge because again, we talked about you never know what somebody's going through, and that whole aspect of life. Um, you'll always bounce back. You'll always bounce back, and remember that. We hit lows in life sometimes. We hit obstacles. We hit issues in life, and in those moments, it seems like everything is fucking terrible. And everything is bad. And how am I gonna come out of this? How am I going to be the same? How am I going to be better from this? You always will. You always will. So have that mindset at the end of the day that during your tough times, I'll bounce back. I'll bounce back. And I'll say it. I'll say it. Feeling like, I went through a very, very low time. I know it hasn't been that long, but I feel like I bounced back already personally with things in life, with things in life. And I'll still continue to be bouncing back because there's still things that need to be finalized and sorted out, stuff like that. But I feel like I've already bounced back. And I was at one point where I was like, fuck, I don't know what life's gonna look like. I don't know. My mom was one in my ear actually, just saying like, you will always be good. Like remember, she was trying to give me my ego back. She's like, you are Nick Skrip. You will always be good. And at one point I was like, I don't know. I don't know what life's gonna look like. But then now I'm like, you're fucking damn right. You're damn right. And a lot of people need to hear that though, because you hit weird things in your life and you're like, how am I gonna be the same or come back from this? And it can be a lot of different things. This can be applied to a lot of different things, but you always will. And keep that in mind, especially at your lows. Don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from. Enough said with that. I think it kind of was going with that care less about people, about people who do not impact you. But for this, maybe it's people that are in your life. If you're going to run into situations where people are going to criticize you for different things, and a lot of people will take criticism to heart, especially if it's people talking negatively about you. And it could be accurate, not accurate, whatever the case is. But people take criticism very poorly, and I'm uptight about what is said about me at the end of the day. But I've kind of learned that you know who sh- who I should be uptight from when it comes to criticism should have a very, I'm not even going to say thin line, but a very defined line. Like I know the last couple months, there's been like things that have been said about me, right? And at first I thought I was going to care, but then I was like looking at the people saying these things and I'm like, these people are fucking like, I can like roast these people. I can, fucking laugh it off. But at the end of the day, they're not people I would ever go to for advice. They're not people that are important to me in my life. So why would I care about the criticism? And a lot of people listening to this can really relate to the same thing. You're going to get criticized all the time. But if the people that are criticizing you are not important in your life for one or for two, and it could be and or for two, are not people you take advice from, meaning people that you would respect, then fuck their criticism. Go with your gut feeling. So often this has been a big thing in my life personally where I just felt a certain way about a situation, a person, um, just things in life where, maybe you didn't have the full explanation for why you were feeling a certain way, but you did. And a lot of people will ignore that gut feeling and then look back and say, man, I had a gut feeling about something and I should have went with my gut. Do that. Do that. So often it's like a superpower. I was telling somebody about this the other day. I have like this superpower that whenever I feel like something ain't right about this situation, so often it's 100% not right. And people, this goes for a different situation. There's people that avoided a crime situation in the past because they went with their gut that something wasn't right about something, and they avoided like a terrible situation. It could be with relationships too. It could be with your friendships. It's happened so often to me where I'm like, man, something ain't right about this, and then I start digging a little bit, and then later down the road, if it wasn't immediately, I was like, I fucking knew something was wrong with that situation or that person, that friend, that girl, whatever. And again, when I talk about a lot of this stuff, I'm not talking about one person or one situation. I'm talking about a lot of things because this is something that through time has been very, very Nick is like, I don't feel right about something. Maybe I'm overthinking it. And then boom, I was right. I was right. Go with your gut. Don't be a bullshitter. Won't be long about that. I'm not a bullshitter. I was telling somebody recently, like, I don't lie about stuff. Maybe I don't like spill everything all the time, but I don't lie about nothing. And I don't pretend that can spit out things that I don't know about. And too many people are so comfortable with bullshitting, meaning like just talking out of their ass, not really knowing about something and just like talking about it freely and trying to talk around things. It's okay not to know things. It's okay to say, I'm not sure about this. Let me get back to you. It's okay to not have a strong opinion on something you don't need to have a strong opinion on. Don't be a bullshitter because if you are a bullshitter, people pick that up and it's not a good look at the end of the day and people judge that a ton. Put yourself in other people's shoes more often. We can relate that back to, everyone is fighting their own battles. We can relate that directly to that, but also maybe in like arguments you have. Maybe it's with your significant other, maybe it's with a coworker, a friend. Try to put yourself more often into somebody else's shoes to see, all right, why are they thinking this way? What is making them think this way? And sometimes that makes for a great counter to an argument or, a good response to, hey, I feel like you're doing this because of this, or you're saying this because of this. and then you can have your response. But it's really this way, you know, put yourself in other people's shoes more often. Also, you know, keep that in mind with the way you treat other people. What if the roles were reversed? How is this person going to react to me saying this or to me doing something? I think I'm trying to do that better with like stuff I say to certain people. All right, how is this person going to react to the way I'm saying this or to what I'm saying specifically? And I think that helps you go a little bit further with some things in life. Then the last thing, get out of your comfort zone. And I could have made a huge list, but we're already at 45 minutes here. But some of the best things in life came from you being uncomfortable with something and giving it a go. And I can relate this to a lot of different things in life where you're in a situation, you're trying something new for the first time, and it's not comfortable. But then through time, you get more and more comfortable. And then you look back and say, hey, I'm glad that I spent that time being uncomfortable with something because it was worth it at the end of the day. So that'll do it for this podcast as Gianna walks in my room and just Gianna, get out of my fucking room. Just completely breaks up this podcast. But I ranted for like almost 50 minutes there about life lessons learned. Hopefully, it's stuff that people can relate to. Maybe you took away something. If I listed off 25 things and you listened and took one thing away from it, then it was worth it at the end of the day. Unless I bored you for most of it, which I hope I didn't. But most of the time, I will mostly have guests on the show, different guests rotating. So this was like an improv thing. It was either like don't have a podcast or have a solo one. So I went solo for this one. But be on the lookout for future podcasts. If you have not listened to the other ones, they have all been great. Go check them out. Subscribe wherever you listen to the podcast, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. Thanks for listening and have a good week.